Alright, so in this video, I'll be showing you how to make this really simple wood material, all using Blender's shader nodes. This is a little bit of a step up from our previous metal material. However, this is still a fairly straightforward process. So we can get started by creating a new file, deleting our default cube by pressing X, Shift A, add in a sphere, and I'll change it from 64 to I'll change segments to 64 and rings to 32. And I'll make sure to press W to open this menu and click on Shade Smooth. We can go up to our Shading tab and then click on our drop down menu here and select our material. Then I'll rename our material to wood, and we can begin creating our wood material. So the node that we're going to base our wood material on, which will be a new texture called the Musgrave texture. So we can add that in by pressing Shift A, Texture, and select the Musgrave texture. If we press Ctrl Shift and left click to preview this node, you can see it has a very wavy design, kind of like the pattern you'd see on the cow. Once again, we have the variables scale and detail. Alongside this, we have dimension. Alongside this, we have dimension and linearity, which both change the patterns of our Musgrave texture. So to help with the customization of our material, we can press Ctrl T to add in our texture coordinate and mapping nodes. Right now, this doesn't really look like a wood texture, so to help with this, we'll press Shift A and add in our noise texture. So I'll search for that up here. And the reason why you can see different colors on our material is because we're previewing it through the color output of our noise texture. So if we press Ctrl Shift and left click on our noise texture once more, it defaults to the grayscale once again. So we can play around with our values until we get something that we're happy with. Note that playing with the nodes has a different effect to how they would appear if we were using them individually. So if we change the scale of our noise texture, we can see that we have more islands appear within our material. However, if we scale back the noise texture, we have less of these islands within other islands. So I'll leave that around a 2, or let's say 2.5. Detail, once again, is fairly simple, so we can bring that all the way up. What's going to be quite useful, however, is roughness. So roughness can increase or decrease the contrast between the black and the white areas of our material, so we can bring that up slightly. And as you can see, it makes some of the darker parts of our shader a bit more noticeable. Also, if we want, we can play with distortion. However, I think I'll leave it as is. For our Musgrave texture, I will decrease the scale to a 3. I'll leave the detail, the dimension, and the linearity. However, to get that stretched effect that we see on wood textures, we need to flatten it. So by using our mapping nodes, we can increase the Z scale by a factor of 15 or something similar to get the desired effect. So to add color to our material, what we need to do is introduce another new node called the color ramp node. So we'll press Shift A and just search for color ramp. Now I'll simply drag and drop it in between our noise texture and our material output node. So as you can see, the color ramp has one massive slider with 2 stops at the end of it, the black and the white. So if we pull the black, you can see that our material gets darker in relation to where we place our slider. Same thing goes for the whites as well. So if we want to make our wood texture, what we can do is select our first stop, select the color bar, and use our color wheel to choose a brown color. So I'll bring up the darkness slider a bit and place it in between an orange and yellow, somewhere around here to get this brownish color. I'll also bring down the darkness a bit and play with it until I find something that I'm happy with. So around here it seems good. If you want to copy the RGB, it's on screen now. Or conversely, you can copy the hex code as well. I'll do something similar for the white stop and change it to until I find something that I'm happy with. So once again, here is the hex code. If you want to copy the exact color that I have on screen now, or the RGB numbers as seen here. And what I'll do is add in one more stop, just so that we have a bit more variation within our material. And there we go, we already have a pretty decent wood texture. However, there's a little bit more that we can add to it. First of all, we can play with the scale. If you want a more larger wood pattern, which is a bit more noticeable, you can always do that. However, what I'm going to do, and what we added in our metal shader video, was some bump. So I'll press Shift A and search for bump. Make sure to plug the normal of our bump into the normal of our principled BSDF. And then what we can do is plug in our noise texture into the height of our bump. Oh yeah, one of the reasons why you can't see anything yet is because we haven't plugged up everything to our principled BSDF node. So I'll make sure to plug in my color ramp into the principled BSDF and press Ctrl Shift and click on my principled BSDF. So now all of the nodes should load in. As you can see, our bump is extremely high, so we'll need to turn that down a little bit. So for now, I'll turn it down to a 0.3 just so that I can get my point across about what I want to do. So we can actually control where our bump appears by using the color ramp once more. So I'll press Shift A and search for our color ramp and plug it in between our noise texture and our bump node. Now if I drag the white slider along our color ramp, you'll see that more of the bumps begin to disappear. So if I bring up the strength just so that you can see it a bit better, there is a threshold where the bumps start to disappear. So I'll make sure to do it around here. And then for our wood grooves actually stick in as opposed to bumping out. So what we can do is actually press the invert button on our bump node. It makes a very subtle difference, but it's worth adding for that extra touch of realism. Then I'll bring the strength down to something very, very low, like a 0.08. Maybe something higher like a 0.2. Okay, so that's looking quite good. And then for the final touch, we can just bring the roughness down, maybe to a 0.3, just for that shiny gloss that you see on a lot of polished wood. Okay, so that's it for our wood texture. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.